was a pre-recorded show last week because I was at BETT and Chris Norton was at BETT also. And tomorrow on the Wild Show, we'll start working out how to relate that to Exeter, because we've discovered quite a few things that do relate to what's going on in Exeter. I mean, obviously all these things travel over the web as well as in real space, but nonetheless what we saw at BETT, at Excel in London, was very interesting. So we'll try and compare it over time and see what connections there might be. John is very interested in the Orcam My Eye because it's an excellent way of translating text or signs, and anything you might read, into sound, if for accessibility or assistive technology, I think is the general term, but that would be a large part of what we saw in the SEND, special educational needs and disability. A lot of these initials, I think it's worth explaining them, because you may be a new listener. So the Orcam My Eye is a wonderful piece of kit, but it costs several £1,000s. So that's why we have been looking at it and not doing very much about it. But what was interesting was that Orcam weren't there this year. They were there in a couple of previous years, and they've been trying out a simpler version of the kit and making it available in large numbers on a rental basis that schools could use, and also with statistics coming back for the teacher or whoever's looking at the class on which words are understood, what the reading speeds are, how the learning is going, in other words. So that's very interesting. That may go further. All of what we saw at BETT had these sort of two aspects to it: the teaching and learning bit, and then the management bit. And they were in different spaces, but these descriptions of different aspects only work up to a point. I think a lot of things cross over in different ways, but it may be that whole approach is getting too complicated, or not resonating, or maybe Orcam think they can present it in some other place. I have to say, there were a lot of people not at BETT who we would have preferred to be at BETT, and we'll get into that later on as well. It's become, well, it is a massive technology show, and so the major companies are in the middle of it, and I imagine people have to think very, very carefully, the smaller companies and the people who represent outside interests, museums or minor publishers or whatever, that used to. I think in Olympia was not as good a display spot in many ways, but it had obscure balconies and places that you wouldn't expect a big tech company to want to be at particularly. So other people, research schemes would show off prototypes in a corner somewhere. Anyway, I'm rambling off the point. Orcam were not there. John's comment is that he doesn't think the price of the Orcam My Eye has changed over the past 3 or 4 years, and the hope is there that this sort of technology will get cheaper. So a company called Vision Aid were there, and they had the Orcam Learn Basic, which is significantly cheaper, but with not all the features of the one you pay thousands of pounds for. But also the Reader 2, which is definitely cheaper. I'm not going to get into all sorts of prices, but the other thing about them, they were quite frank that the capability of phones is getting better, and so there are ways within Apple particularly, but probably in other phones. Apple was the one they related to and showed what was possible, which, by the way, was the first time I've seen a mobile phone at BETT. You can highlight text and then it will read it to you, and that's quite straightforward, and I guess that's going to get better on phones. But they also said that a lot of schools don't really want everybody having a phone for other reasons, and certainly in exams, being able to call up Google is not recommended. And also prisons, there's people in prisons who need some way of reading things, but they shouldn't have a phone either. So there's lots of opportunities for an affordable device that is not a phone, or is not a general purpose internet access sort of device, and they see that as where they're going. But it's interesting. In other words, this voice interface, because you can talk, you can either talk to your device, or your device will talk to you, and it can happen in the send context or as assistive technology, or I think it can go mainstream. But we didn't see as much of that in the rest of the space as there might have been. I think voice as mainstream is going to go further, and the specialised devices will develop as well. And what the scale of these two aspects are, I'm not sure, but I think both things can continue. And I'll talk to John more about this. I'm sure I'll be able to see him before next week, and I'm hoping he'll be here if he's avoided the rain and the cold and the wind, which could happen.